Okay, the next question is from Carl. It's a long question, and it's related to, if you want to open up the verse, 2 Corinthians 5:8. But the question is, Paul was thought to be dead in Acts 14:19. In another account, Paul is caught up into the third heaven in 2 Corinthians 12:2-4. Do you think it's possible that when Paul was stoned, he actually did die physically, temporarily, and this event was the same time when he was caught up into the third heaven and saw unspeakable things, because that's where believers go right when they die, but somehow was revived and is sent back to earth? You hear of cases today where people's hearts have stopped and they died, but then they were revived by the doctors.
Well, I don't think it's happening now. You do hear of people who will say that. I don't think that's happening. But, not just Paul. Think of Lazarus. How long was Lazarus dead? 4 days. Where was he? Where was his spirit? Well, as this verse says, we are confident, I say, and willing rather to be absent from the body and to be present with the Lord. He had to be. Lazarus had to be in heaven with the Lord because he was literally dead, physically dead, and his soul couldn't have been anywhere else. It wasn't wandering the earth. It was with the Lord in heaven, and then Christ rejoined his soul to his body. What a... I almost said, it's a hard thing to do, isn't it? It would be better for Lazarus, as the Bible says, to die is gain, and he's there. He's already gone through the physical dying part, and he's been in heaven, and he's with the Lord, and yet the Lord said, Lazarus, come forth. And so Lazarus' spirit had to come and enter into his body again, and he lived on the earth once more. So even though it's very unusual, and I don't think it's maybe happened that often, it did happen to Lazarus, and it probably happened to the Apostle Paul. He could have died, and that's when he had that experience. And notice the vagueness of his own report, whether in the body or out of the body, I cannot tell. So more than likely, God kept some kind of special hand upon these individuals who ever ventured into heaven, in this kind of way for a temporary stay. You don't want to give them the full taste of glory and then send them back here to this earth and to experience, the sin, the corruption, and all the terrible things that sin brings once again. So it's probably they're with the Lord in heaven, but God is dealing with them in a special way to keep them a little foggy on exactly what's going on. And then, Lazarus suddenly finds himself walking with grave clothes, and they take him off, and he's back. And then he had to live a little while longer and die again. He had to physically die once more, but that's really not that big a deal.
Died today, the doctors revived them.
I'm sorry, what?
The people that say, the reports that come out that say that people died and then they were revived.
Yeah. Well, normally you hear it's very short periods of time, and there are a lot of things could be involved with that. It could be just an inaccurate diagnosis. The machine failed, and then later on they get another reading. It could be a lot of things, but typically it's a few minutes. Oh, I was dead for 8 minutes. Their heart could have stopped, but until God takes the spirit, even if someone's heart has stopped, the cessation of a beating heart is not death. Death, God determines when He takes the spirit, and when the body no longer has the spirit. So if the spirit remains, even if the heart has stopped for a period of time, that's not really biblically the definition of death. It's when God takes the spirit.